Hi guys, I'm recording this video because I wanted to show you how actually difficult are King Pawns Endgame and how two 22 artists like me and the opponent I played in this game can easily mess up the endgame. Now, first of all, I'm just slightly better in this endgame because this bishop is superior than the knight. In fact, the best move would be to play bishop on b2, and the point is that I'm preventing all the knight movement. As you can see, the knight can't go anywhere, and I'm also blocking the a pawn, so he can't easily advance. But instead of doing that, I decided to play another move, a losing move, which is the move king on e6. So I decided to go for a king and pawn endgame, and I played this move just by instinct because I thought I was winning, which is not true. The problem was that I really underestimated the difficulty of this endgame because kings and pawns endgames are one of the hardest endgame possible. They look like they're pretty simple because we don't have many pieces, but they are actually really tricky. In fact, this move loses because after the knight takes and the capture with pawn, it's good that I have a pass pawn, but it's not easy to defend it because I don't have the access to the d square. In fact, after my opponent plays something like king on f2 and I play king on d6, because my plan is trying to defend the pawn but also going for the a pawn, the problem is that after I play king on c5, you can play the move king on d3. So I saw this and I thought that I had the move king on before. The point is that, okay, you can win my pawn, but I'm going to play king on a3, which looks like I'm going somewhere, but there is a problem. First of all, let's say you play king on d5 in order to win this pawn, I actually win. So I had a point by playing that move. In fact, after I take the a pawn and let's say you play king on c6 in order to win the b pawn, I'm going to take this, you win the b pawn, and I can take the pawn on d4. The problem is that after you take the a pawn, my king is closer to your pawns and I'm going to win everything. So this is a really easy endgame to win. Although, it's not that easy because after I play the move king on b4, you take, and I play king on e3, you don't have to go for this pawn. You can just play the move c5. What is the problem? Well, is that after I take, I have to take the c pawn, otherwise you make a queen. So after I take and king takes, I win the a pawn, but if you play king on b5, and this is to show you how tricky these endgames are, you lose with white. Because I take, the king take, and I'm going to win the pawn. The black king is closer. The problem is that you can play the move b4, and now you basically do what black did. So you have to take it, otherwise make a queen. And after this happens, as you can see, the king is closer to the pawns and is going to win. You see? Well, that was inaccurate, I don't know how. But you play this, you try to win the pawn, I win this, you take the f pawn, and now I don't take the g pawn, otherwise it's a draw. I just play the move g4. You play g3, I take the pawn, and good luck, I'm going to make a queen and win the endgame. So, going back, in this position I would have been completely lost. But this is not the move that my opponent played. In this position, my opponent decided to play the move a3. And as you can see, it drew the game. It drew the game because I have the incredible move, which I missed. a4. Now, a4 is not too hard to find, to be fair. But maybe I didn't see that because I didn't have time. I don't know, maybe it was a bad day to play an endgame. The point of a4 is that, first of all, you cannot push. I just win the pawn. Like, this has to be winning. Let's say you play king on d2. I'm going to play king on b3, win everything, and make a queen. So it is pretty easy. So you have to take. That's the problem. Well, apparently before is the best move, but let's say you take. I'm going to win this pawn. And you play, I think, king on d2, because you want to be close to this pawn. It is a pass one. Now, there are two ways to win this endgame. Now it's in g4, but I don't think it matters too much to push these pawns. You could play king on b3 or push the pawn. Now, if you play king on b3, it's trickier because they have king on d3. So you take, you take the pawn and you're going to make a queen. But in the meanwhile, you're going to win these pawns. Now, this isn't too hard to win. We are going to make a queen and we are going to stop the two pawns. Although, you just complicate things. Like, you could win these in a much easier way. So, going back, the easiest way to win this endgame is playing d3. Why? What is the point? Now, if you play king on e3, I just have king on c3. So I'm going to make a queen, and this is not a clever move. So by playing this move, I'm again restricting the king movement. Let's say you play something like f4, I'm going to trade. Okay, let's play the computer line. f4, I take. You could even push blocking everything, but let's just take, because if we take, our opponent doesn't have two pawns that can be pushed and make a queen. It just has one, so one less problem, I would say, so this makes sense. And now, okay, you could push this pawn, but doesn't make a lot of sense. Or you could move the king. Now, if you say, what happens, well, it's my turn, I play king on d4, so you have to go back. What happens if I play a5? Because after this, I have the move a4. So I have to move, it's my turn to move. Am I going to lose or something like that? Of course not. I can play the move king on e4 or king on c4. I think king on e4 is more precise because we could even win this pawn, even though it's not necessary. Because let's say you play king on c3, we just move and we make a queen. And let's say you play something like, I don't know, king on c1, we can just move. You see, and we're going to make a queen anyway. That's the problem. This position is winning anyway. Let's say you play this, I play this. Now, be careful. Do not play king on d3 because this will be stalemate. We can just take the pawn, for example, and go to make a queen. So this is really, really easy to win. So going back in this position, a4 would have been winning. But I decided to play, because I missed that, I decided to play b5. Now what is the point of b5? If you play something like king on d3, well, I think I'm still losing. Oh, well, okay. Maybe I saw this. If you play king on d3, yeah, in fact, I'm not losing. I can take the pawn. Pawn takes. And now I have the move a4. So now you are in Zugzwang, actually. If you move the king, I'm going to win the pawn and you lose. So let's say you move the pawn, for example. Now, be careful, because if we take, we lose the game. Because now we are the one in Zugzwang. So you see, these endgames are so complicated. You have, instead of doing this, to push the pawn. Because now it's your opponent turn, he has to move and you're going to win the pawn. There is a problem with all of these, with what I played, because you don't have to play king on d3. That's the problem. You can take the pawn first, okay? And after I do this, and you play king on d3, and I play king on c5, defending everything, you have the incredible move b4. What is the point of b4? The point is that after I take, and I have to take, and pawn takes, you can sacrifice this pawn in order to misplace the king. Now you're going to win the pawn. This king is way more active. You're going to win the pawn and destroy me. So this is how the game went. And I decided to play the move d5. King on d5, trying to survive, but obviously this is lost. Because you can keep pushing this pawn and there is no way I can stop it. Now I decided to play this, played everything, but yeah, this is absolutely lost because after this happened and you're going to win the pawn. Now you have to be a little bit precise, but this is a super easy endgame to win. But there are still ways to draw this endgame. So after you take the pawn, now there is a really easy way to see if an endgame like this is winning when there are only kings and you have a pawn. If the pawn is on the second, the third, or the fourth rank. Wherever the pawn is, just keep in mind the square in front of the pawn. The king has to be in one of these three squares. Okay? So the square is not where the king should be in these three squares. If I manage to put the king in one of these three squares, I win the game. So let's say the pawn is on f2 instead. Okay, on f2. You just say, okay, this is not the right square, one in front of the pawn. The king should be on these three squares. Let's say the pawn is on f4. You think about this. The king should be on these three squares in order to win. So if my opponent managed to play in this position, king on g5, king on f5, or king on e5, is winning. If the pawn is on the 5th or 6th rank instead, let's say is on f5, I don't have to have the king on these squares. I could even have the king on these three. So let's say the pawn is on f5, the king can be on these 6 squares in order to win. Let's say the pawn is on f6, the king can be on these 6 squares in order to win. And this is how we understand if an endgame like this is winning or not. It is actually pretty simple. So on these 3 squares, you win. I play king on d7, and this is winning. So you manage to play king on e5, and you know for the fact that this endgame is winning, and my opponent is going to show you how you win this, but it's really simple. Again, the right way to mess this up, but you manage to play king on e5, so you know that there has to be a way to win. Now, you can push the pawn, or you could play king on f5 in order to gain more space, and you want the access to the g6 square, of course, so I have to play king on f7, and now you can push the pawn, and I have to waste the time going somewhere, and I'm going to lose. Let's say I play this, you have king on e6, and it is GG. I play this, and yeah, my opponent played king on f6, and I resigned because let's say I move, he's going to play, for example, king on e7 and push the pawn. Now, the way to mess up a position like this, which is, well, kind of complicated, but is still possible, is if you somehow manage to put the king not in front of your pawn, but next to your pawn. So let's say you play this, and I play this, and you keep pushing. Well, this is still winning, but let's say you waste some time. Let's waste the moves. So now you understand. Let's play this, this, and this. Now, this is the position I'm talking about. You have next to the pawn, and there is no way you can win this because, as I said, the pawn is on f6. You need to be on one of these 6 squares with the king. If your king isn't there, it means that this is it though. Because as you can see, you can push the pawn, but after you play something like king on f6, because otherwise you lose the pawn, this is stalemate. I can't go anywhere. So this is how you could actually mess up a position like this. But yeah, I made this video in order to show you that kings and pawns endgames are super complicated, so before trading every piece, you should actually be really careful. If you're not sure if that endgame is it though, I suggest you to keep pieces and try to find another plan. If you keep pieces, you shouldn't have a lot of problems, or at least less problem that I had in this game. So yeah, that's it for today guys, and see you in the next video.